So I know it's been a while since I've put a video up, but today we'll be making a Krabby Patty that you would see on Spongebob Squarepants. And to start off, you would need a circle cutter, and it could be any size circle cutter that you want the Krabby Patty to be. Any size is okay. Any paintbrush just for adding on the glue, which would be the water that I just pointed to. An X-Acto knife or any kind of knife would work fine, and a smaller circle cutter compared to the Krabby Patty that I use for the pickles, and that can be any size. And then to start off with, I have the brown fondant and that fondant, and then I have the colored one for the that was for the burger. Then I have white for the onions, red. I have some yellow for the cheese. I added a little bit of orange so it wouldn't be so bright, but it still looks bright. And then I have some green and darker green for the pickles, and the greens for the lettuce. Now let's get started. So I'll go ahead and get just the bun colored one and go ahead and roll that out. I like it pretty thick because it is going to be a bun. You don't want it to be too thin. Go ahead and just cut it out with the circle cutter that you chose. And then I just like to smooth out the edges and then turn it around because this will be the bottom piece. And then I'll go ahead and cut out the top part. And sorry, I was out of the camera, but I just like to pinch the edges down a little bit so it looks more round on the tops, and this is going to be the top bun. And then just put it down there to dry while I do the rest of the pieces. Now I have the brown piece, which was considered the meat. And then you cut it with the exact same cookie cutter. You're going to be using this cookie cutter a lot. Go ahead and smooth out the edges, and then I use the back of the blade of the X-Acto knife just to add a little bit of texture so it looks like meat and it just doesn't look like a blob of fondant on top of it. So you can add as much texture or as little texture as you want, or no texture, it doesn't really matter. And then go ahead and just stick it right on top. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the green. I like to let the lettuce sit out for a little while. Sorry for the camera shake. I like to let the lettuce sit out for a while so that way I can go ahead and ruffle the sides to make it look more like lettuce. And then for the cheese, I couldn't find my square cutter about this size, so I decided to just go ahead and make the cheese about this thick, and then put the circle cutter on top and just cut a square around it. So I would have about the right size of cheese. You could skip this step if you have a square cutter about this size, but like I said, I couldn't find mine, so I had to use what I had. And then you just take off the edges and you clean up the side to make it look more square. My fondant wasn't cooperating a lot today. So then you go ahead and turn around. There you go, you have your piece of cheese. And you take your lettuce and you do a ruffling motion, so you just go back and forth, which adds that ruffling motion. I don't really know how to explain it, just keep pushing the toothpick back and forth and it'll add that for you, which makes it look like a legit, well, I call it a legit, well, just a piece of lettuce. And then what you do is go ahead and add a little bit of water for glue because my fondant had already started to dry out, and you put the cheese on top. This can be in any order that you want. I just like how it looks like this with the different color differentiation. So then you go ahead and put the lettuce right on top, push down this side so it looks more like real lettuce. Then you put it down to dry and you use the red for the tomatoes. Go ahead and do it. I like my tomatoes pretty thick, but you can do it as thin or as thick as you would like. I use a smaller tip to put an outline. And then I just poked a little bit of hole. Sorry, I did that out of the camera, but poked a little bit of hole so it looked more realistic, even though no one's gonna see it, but I know it's in there. And then we're gonna go ahead and take some white, and that'll be for the onions. And it was sticking a little bit. I live in Florida, so it's really humid. So I just started to roll it out really thinly because I don't like thick pieces of onions in my burgers. Then I just cut it out with the regular sized cookie cutter, and then I use the tip to cut out the middle circle so it looks like a ring of onion. And then after I did that, I just cut it in half, and then I just added it on. Well, first I wanted to make sure it looked right, so then after that you just add a little bit of water so that it doesn't stick. so it does stick, I mean. And then you go ahead and do that to the other side. You can put as much onions or as little onion as you want. You don't have to put onions. It's up to you what you put on this burger. I like to put my sesame seeds around this time so that they start to dry, and you just tear off a little white piece and make it look like a teardrop. I kind of fast forward this part because you don't need to see over and over again. But like I said, you just put it into a teardrop and then you put it right on top. And that way it gives it time to just go ahead and dry. There you go. Now for the last piece, I'm gonna do the pickles, which is the darker green, because pickles are darker green on the outside, and that's the part that you would see. You roll it out to whatever thickness you want. I love pickles, so I always make mine thicker. And then you just cut it out with the tip. You can have any circle cutter. You can use a circle cutter for that. You don't have to use a tip. That's just happens to be what I had on me. I couldn't find my smaller circle cutter either. So I went ahead and I just put it on top on the opposite side so you can still see the onions. And there you go. It's pretty much done. You just need to add the top layer onto it. Put a little bit of water. Put it on top. And if you see that red spot, you could take that off really easily with just the paintbrush and some water. And then next week I'll be making some Despicable Me toppers. I used that for my birthday cake. Sorry, I was out of the camera. I made about 4 and I'll be teaching you how to make them. They're very cute, very easy. So please tune in next week to watch that.